Hello everyone, I hope you've all had wonderful holidays. This is my first video of this year, and kind of towards the last few weeks of the year and in the beginning of the year, I've been going through all the different books. People make resolutions. I'm not a big resolutions person, so I've never ever done them, but I do tend to get extra conscious of certain things, and depending on the year it seems. So I've been kind of craving to do a little bit more DIY, which I haven't done properly in ages. Like obviously I do little kind of single-use masks and scrubs and things like that, but I haven't done anything more complicated in 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. It's called 200 Tips, Techniques and Recipes for Natural Beauty. This is a brand new book for me. I can't really take credit for discovering it. It was actually Amber from Amber's Beauty Talk. She was just bragging how she found this new amazing book for only $2.99, and I was like, okay, I really need to know what it is. Kindly she shared it with me, and I was able to get it for the same amazing price. What's wonderful about this book is a really good reference book. It's quite thin, but has a surprising amount of information. It gives information on different essential oils, butters and carrier oils. And what I like about it, it's unlike all the previous books about sort of DIY beauty that I have, it does include some kind of interesting oils, carrier oils in them. So like cocoon nut oil, sea buckthorn, cranberry, like baobab, blackberry seed, blueberry seed. So not just the standard apricot, grapeseed, almond, jojoba kind of thing, which is every book seems to include, but slightly more kind of new, more interesting to me personally oils. And it doesn't have like a great deal of recipes, but it does have quite a few interesting ones, like for hair, perfume. It's just a great one for kind of inspiration and for people who are like more into freestyle DIY, I guess, and who just need like a good basic reference about, okay, when it comes to perfume oils, which ones are the base notes, which ones are the top notes, that sort of thing, and what are different properties of carrier oils or butters, what order to melt them, and things like that. Got a good section about sterilizing things, what sort of utensils you might need. Just a very good comprehensive book. I'm really happy to have it, and it's just because it's so concise and it's not a huge book, it's actually very easy to find things. So the next DIY book that has kind of made it was a birthday present, I believe, this year. It's organic body care recipes. I think the name is a little bit misleading because it's not really just body care recipes, it's just loads and loads of beauty recipes in here. And a good part of the beginning, goes into your skin, what it does, how to look after your hair, things like that. So like this is all about just general beauty stuff, nothing to do with recipes. And then little bit tips on essential oils, drying herbs and things like that, and about cosmetic ingredients. But a big chunk, let me see, so tools, so about this much of a book is the actual recipes. Like not all the recipes I would use, like some of them ask for borax powder, which I personally think is a little bit of iffy ingredient, and it'd be very difficult to find it in UK to source it here, because obviously the EU also is not too fond of this ingredient. For personal use, like I don't know, maybe if you had a beauty company, it'd be easy to find, but not as a individual, and like I don't really want to mess with it anyway. Some of the recipes in here are like not really what I'd call a recipe, like, you know, with one ingredient, aka strawberry. They go as like a mask, which is great. I've known about it already. But majority, like a good 90%, let's say, are pretty decent recipes, and it actually has a section just for ladies, so just like about feminine care, about taking care of your décolleté area, and other bits. But it's just really good, not information that I came across in other books, because I have about, I don't know, 10 different, maybe even more books on DIY, and some of them I used to think were like amazing, but as I was going through it at the beginning of it, it turns out yeah, actually no, majority of the books are a little bit naff. It was great for me like when I was getting into it like 10 years ago, but not so much anymore, and there's been a couple of books that are completely misplaced. They will be somewhere in the storage, but I wasn't able to find it. Some of them I would have liked to include in this, but however, since I didn't refresh my memory on them, I don't really want to mention stuff that might be a bit rubbish. Okay, this book, it's the Vogue Natural Health and Beauty. It's from the 70s, I think, from the end of the 70s. Yeah, 1979. That it was published in. I didn't get my hands on it until this summer, because my favourite store Content was doing like a little revival. What I love about this book is that despite the fact that it's kind of, what, 36 years old now effectively, like about 90% of the information in here is still incredibly relevant. I like how it's looking at beauty from everything. It's not just DIY recipes. It's actually a lot about nutrition and exercise, just general lifestyle, and like there's aromatherapy in there, flower remedies, like anything you can think of. Obviously a few things would need to be like taken with your common sense, because it is an old book, which means some of the information may be a little bit outdated, but a good portion of it is still very relevant in my opinion. And I just love it. Like, I love the feel of it. There's like loads of really cool like illustrations. Part of me wishes that Vogue nowadays was a little bit more like this. Yeah, it's just really good common sense advice, and it does have a few DIY recipes. Like there's a section on sun tanning lotions or potions. Yeah, that could completely ignore. But yeah, there's the food recipes as well. It's just a really good kind of book to look into, and if you are slightly fascinated with the vintage things, like vintage publications and things like that, this is a pretty cool one to have. So the last from kind of DIY side of things is this massive, it's kind of heavy, struggling to lift this. This is Essential Oil Safety by the Robert Tisserand and Rodney Young. And if you do your own blends, you probably are familiar with Tisserand essential oils. Yes, this is the person who wrote the book. So this is a quite an expensive time. I think it was like around £50 or something like that, on Amazon at that. but it's the most comprehensive book about how to use essential oils, you know, their effects on the skin. You know, if you're worried about something being photosensitizing or being able to use it while pregnant and things like that. If you're like a serious aromatherapy blender, you need this. If you're a bit of a hobbyist and I don't know, looking to spend that much money, you probably can find some of the information elsewhere, but if you're a bit like a worry freak like me and love to research the essential oils that maybe not only you putting in your skincare, but what other people are using in it, you know, like whether or not you think it's safe or suitable for your skin. Like, I found this to be an invaluable resource. The one I have is the second edition, it's the updated one. So the latest addition to my nutritional book collection is the Eat, Nourish, Glow. When I originally got it, I assumed it was like more of a recipe book. Shows how well I read the descriptions on Amazon. Actually it's not, it's just kind of, it does have recipes inside it, but it's not really a recipe book as such. It's just so much more. It's the way you approach food, and normally I'm not a big fan of this style of book, generally because there seems to be huge emphasis on calorie intake and kind of like stop eating desserts and like chocolate, well not raw chocolate but like processed chocolate, and there is a little bit of obviously like about sugar in here, not a little bit, like there's a good portion of it here, but it's written in a completely different manner. I kind of like how she doesn't really count calories. It's not really her approach to nutrition at all, and the fact that it has like different eating profiles of people, not all of this book is based on a person who is just like binges on sweets and stuff. That's really not me. Like, I don't really get confectionery cravings. I do have an occasional slice of cake, but it's rarely like more than once or twice a month. I don't really go out and buy chocolates. Most of the chocolates that I do have is being gifts. If someone offers me a chocolate and I do feel like I fancy some, I'm not going to turn it down. It's not like I'm like, no, I don't eat sweets. But I don't actively go looking for sweets, and I don't really buy them for the house. Like, the only time we have it is pretty much Easter and Christmas and maybe occasional birthday when they are being gifted to us. But what's happened in the last few months, that generally like my approach to food has always been pretty good. Like, majority of the food that we eat was like home cooked, and if I say so myself, pretty healthy. However, the last few months have been like really stressful, and instead of like an occasional every other week takeouts have been comprising like a big chunk of our dinners, and then you kind of get sucked into this kind of not cooking routine, and then it becomes like almost addictive. So like towards the end of the last year, I was like, okay, actually I don't really like this. I want to go back to us cooking more, you know, preparing our own meals and like not buying lunch all the time, and I wasn't really feeling great on that diet. But even though in comparison to how much of my life I have been cooking, you've been like making good choices. The fact for the past few months I haven't, it's almost like kind of left me lost a little bit. Like I couldn't really find my way back to like how I used to. It's like I almost panicking. It's like, oh my god, what did I used to eat, like all of this stuff. So yeah, I think this was a timely purchase. Not really my usual style with nutritional book, because it just does have quite a lot more advice rather than just recipe video, but I think at this point I could actually use the advice, you know. Didn't used to be the person who needed it. Now I am. Now I have it, and I like the way it's written. You know, it's not preachy. It's very kind of accessible, and I like all the different approaches. You know, that people don't always have the same needs in their diet, and not always the same problems. You know, like I really enjoyed the Eat Nourish Glow bag. I like the general outlook that she has on food, and it's kind of nice to have. I'm not a vegetarian or vegan, so it's nice for me to have kind of good options that do include meat and fish, although she does give like a lot of alternatives for people who are vegetarian and vegan, but yeah, I'm very pleased with this. So the last book that I wanted to talk about is actually a fashion book. It's called Naked Fashion. It was a present, but I would have got it myself anyway. It's kind of, I think it was done in association with People Tree. It's about sustainable fashion, and it's got lots of profiles by designers and fashion insiders, like some people that you might know like already, like Orla Keeley and Emma Watson, and it just talks about the fashion industry as a whole, and like different approach, you know, the sustainable, more sustainable approach, like People Tree, for example, have, you know, with Sophia Mini in charge. And it's just, it's hard to explain this book, because it just has so many different ideas from so many different people, but it just kind of gives you an outlook what could be if kind of fair trade and organic fashion was mainstream, what sort of things that you could expect. It's a really good read. It's got beautiful, kind of beautifully presented, loads and loads of photos. It just gives you something to think about. Yeah, so out of all of these books, only two of them, the Eat Nourish Glow and the 200 recipes and tips, those two books were the ones that were new for me this year. The rest of them I've had some for quite a while, but these are the books that I keep sort of coming back over and over to. And I think if you were interested in those subjects, your library would definitely be richer for having them. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe got some new ideas of what to read, and see you in the next one.